All right, so welcome everyone to our presentation on Catholic social services. I'm going to allow Jeremy, our volunteer coordinator, to get us started welcoming you and to give you an overview of the social services that we offer here at CSS.
All right, thanks, Megan. Like Megan said, my name is Jeremy Soshek. I'm the volunteer coordinator. I guess before we get started, why don't we just go ahead and say a quick prayer? I can go ahead and lead, and if you guys just kind of want to follow along that way, it doesn't get too wordy, but we'll go ahead and start with prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Come, Holy Spirit, and teach us what you want us to do, to fulfill your ministry, to reach out and use our skills and our talents to help others, and to lead them closer to Jesus. And we ask intercession through Mary, our Mother. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of death. In the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. All right, so like Megan said, I'll just give you a little brief overview of kind of all the different services CSS has to offer in Lincoln anyways. So we are over southern Nebraska, so we stretch all the way from Auburn all the way out to Imperial, Nebraska. And so we have different areas, and each place kind of does different things, but we all kind of work together to make our services available throughout the state. And so in Lincoln here, we have a food pantry, and so we take clients every day, every weekday, offer food if people are needing some additional assistance. We've set up the pantry to be what we call a market style. And so before COVID, we would walk clients through, we'd have volunteers who'd push their cart, load things onto their cart. It'd be a very personal experience for both the volunteers and as well as the clients. So it really opened the door to more conversations to see if we can help in other ways, if we can get them some other resources. Also reduce waste, when people can choose the items off themselves off the shelves. You'd be amazed, what I would choose to take is not what other people choose to take. And so it really gives people the dignity, like they're shopping for themselves when they go like that. Unfortunately now, as you can see the pictures there, we do have all the food pre-boxed just so we don't have a lot of extra clientele in the building, things like that. So the food pantries are available to all of our clients. Anybody can call us, including refugees. So if you are working with a family and you notice, they would need some help with some food, or they want some food, you can go ahead and send them over to us. We take those appointments Monday through Thursdays in the mornings, starting at 8 o'clock. So that information can be found online too. So with COVID, we've been doing some more things over Zoom with some volunteers. We've had a Zoom volunteer training through UNL called the Master Health Volunteer Training up there in the top left. The bottom left was a really cool story. So it was kind of a collaboration between us, the Veterans Center, and then the F Street Community Church. So the F Street Community Church did some outreach and some Bible studies out at the Veterans Center. And kind of when COVID happened, a lot of the veterans were having a really hard time not having a lot of contact. A lot of them come in off the streets, just start living in these apartment style buildings. And so they were feeling very isolated and they needed some help. And so the VA reached out to us and to them and to F Street to see what we could do. So we were able to purchase a bunch of cleaning kits and assemble them and then deliver them to the veterans there. It's just a little way of, having a little bit of contact and also offering some resources to them. And then the food bank was able to help out with some food as well for them. And then another thing that's happened multiple times now has been these drive-through career fairs that Lincoln has been putting on. And they've been extremely well attended, and businesses have been very easy to work with. They provide all their information in a packet. People can receive the packet, take it back home, read through all the different companies, and then apply to all these different jobs in Lincoln right now. So that's happened a number of times. It kind of actually got us sparked to get one of our clients start moving off the streets, and he was actually able to successfully get into an apartment and get a job, kind of sparked by one of these. So the Master Health Volunteer Training, it's just about over, but basically, if you're familiar with the Master Gardener program, kind of an equivalent program that UNL is kind of launching. And so Catholic Social Services was actually the first agency that they decided to work with. So we were very blessed off of that to volunteers who are interested in this training. So we have about 15 volunteers. We're going through this training. We've got a few weeks left, and we've covered a variety of topics. It's kind of focused on health, and so how we can impact the health of our community and those who we're encountering volunteering. And so they're really driving a lot of change, driving a lot of needed inclusion of health into our services, whether that be through pantry, just all across the board. And kind of the last one there, the bridges out of poverty. We'll kind of touch on that in the next slide here, but just kind of giving our volunteers just a mindset of where are people coming from when they are in poverty, what are they thinking about, how do they think about things, coming from a standpoint of not being in poverty, it's easier to look towards the future, but when you're in poverty, it's very day to day. And that's kind of the mindset that drives that. And just kind of looking at that little diagram there, equality versus equity, how can we meet the needs of our clients with where they're at, to give them what they really need rather than just kind of something across the board. So emergency assistance services, kind of like what we were talking about there with the bridges. This is where the bridge comes from. When you start making more money, your benefits drop off exponentially. So starting off for a family of 3 with 1 adult working, making $5.11 an hour, you start losing Medicaid. You jump up to $11.44, you lose food stamps. $16.29, you start losing child care. $17.82, you lose child health care. $20.62, self-sufficiency wage, basically where they would have to get to be considered, out of poverty. And so to bridge that gap is really what our emergency services is designed to do. So if we can help someone out with a month of rent, if they're falling behind, maybe we can keep them off the streets for a good portion of time, because that could be that bridge that if they didn't have that assistance, they really couldn't make it out. Because if they were to get, if they start making more money, they're losing a lot. So we're just trying to give them these little bridges to be able to step out of their situations and get towards that sufficiency and really give them a hand up. So some of the ways we do that are obviously with rent and utility assistance through cash payments, offer some car repairs, furniture, and then now we're going to be starting some job placement. And so we do that with refugees right now, but we're fortunate enough to be hiring somebody here soon to be doing this for non-refugee clients as well. So we're really excited about that. And then the St. Christopher car donation program, anybody can donate their car to us. If it runs good, we can give it away. If it's not running great, we'll take it and we'll sell it and either use that to fix up more cars or help give that out as cash assistance too. So we can make a car go a long way. So it's always exciting when people decide to donate their car, and then to watch people come in. Today somebody just came in right before, went home to sign his title and receive his keys to a new car. So it really goes a long ways with people. And then walk in, we do clothing, over to the thrift store, clothing vouchers, diapers, blankets, water, coats, just about anything. We also have a sack lunch program. People come in, they can get lunch every day. We also started breakfast just recently, so now they can get a breakfast. And then Sunday nights, we just started a Sunday night meal where we bring in a food truck to serve some meals. So before a couple weeks ago, there wasn't any place offering a Sunday night meal in Lincoln for free. So. And then St. Gianna's, most people have heard about St. Gianna's. They're kind of the poster program. And we love St. Gianna's and what it's able to do for the women out there. And it's really touching when you start hearing some of the stories of the women out there. And they come from all different walks of life. You know, some of them, you know, just your typical neighbor. Some of them are pretty close to homelessness or are homeless. You know, they might be struggling with drug and alcohol addictions, you know, or we try to get them into treatments, and then we're able to house them after they've gone through those treatments and things like that. Custody issues, obviously abuse, all sorts of things. And so Veronica works out there along with the sisters, and they do a great job of taking care of the women, getting them into counseling sessions at the clinical offices, and really just offering a very holistic approach to rebuilding their lives and getting them back on track. And so recently we just started a financial literacy program for them, to kind of teach them how to manage their finances, how to make a budget, and all of that. And it's actually been very well received by all the ladies out there. And it was something that was needed for a while. So we have a few volunteers helping with class as well, as some staff teaching it. So there's not a lot else going on out at St. Gianna's right now, but that's kind of what we're proud to have started during COVID. So. And then immigration, as Megan was kind of talking about earlier, Drew does all of our immigration work, and he was formerly working with refugees, but now he does primarily immigration, and he does a great job. Kind of has an interesting story with these pictures of this gentleman. Correct me if I'm wrong again, Megan, but Sarah, did we get that right?
Perfect.
Great. So he was actually sleeping out underneath the bridge right by CSS, and Drew was actually out looking for another client underneath the bridge and ran into this guy, and this guy started saying, hey, you got any money? I'm a refugee. I need some help. And Drew's like, wow, you're a refugee? Well, you know, come on over. Let's see what we can do for you. And so this gentleman was suffering from diabetic blindness. He was an extreme alcoholic. Had a 10-page list with cops, as far as on his record, mostly alcohol-related charges, and wasn't really in a good situation. And so Drew kind of took him in. He was able to get him his green card, and the gentleman was, he started seeing that people were investing in him, and he really wanted to invest in himself. And so he went and he got treatment. And so he got treatment for 3 months, and after he got out, we kept working with him, got him his citizenship, started managing his diabetes. He can see just fine now. He's working, and he's really just a great success story. But it was all because he really wanted to help himself, from just a little bit of hope that we gave him. And so Drew does that every day with people, with getting them green cards, working with citizenship, employment documents, DACA, travel documents, fee waivers, which unfortunately will be going away. The fees are going to be going up a lot here. But he's been working very hard to get as many clients through the door before that happens. So. And then refugee resettlement. So kind of how it works. You see the pictures at the airport there where sometimes the whole families are coming over. A lot of times the families will meet them at the airport, and everyone says it's always a big party when they're receiving their family members. They'll go over and hold meals for days, and maybe you got a little bit of experience with that now. And it's just a real big blessing to watch people be united with their families over here, and to really get them immersed in the community. So some people, they didn't get any education in their country, so we get them enrolled in LPS, get them in schools, teach them how to ride the bus, all sorts of things. So just a complete emulsion in the culture. And then kind of coming from that, you got to remember, where people are coming from. So when people first come over, they're often, thinking about the people still behind, what they left behind. So it is a complete change. So to expect people just to, flip the switch and come out of that, and completely leave that behind. It's important for us to learn from them, and you start listening to some of their stories, and it's just really inspiring as far as the work that we do and that we're able to do to help them here, but then also remember where they came from. And then employment services with refugees. So Albert does all of our employment, and so he does a great job of applying places with them, driving them to interviews, driving them to apply, interpreting for their interviews, going with them for the new job orientations, so they have a clear understanding of what they're going to be doing, and then just continually working with them, making sure that where they're at is the right fit for them, helping them move up if they can, and things like that. Oftentimes people come over and they had a degree, or they had experience, and they were working maybe as a pharmacist, as you might see later, and they come over here and then they start working at Smart Chicken, and so to say that they don't have those skills isn't true. And so we recently just got a grant, a lot of money, a Google grant actually. Megan, I don't know if you're going to touch on this a little bit, but kind of in collaboration with a number of other leaking agencies to launch. Correct me if I'm wrong again, Megan, but what's the official name? It's
so we'll be starting what's called Career Ladder.
Yes.
So it's similar to what we've already done with the employment department, in that we are accompanying the job application process, getting them connected to job opportunities that better tap into their skill sets. In this case, it's going to be more intensive career development. So providing career pathways to, say, get into nursing or engineering, education, etc. And so we're really excited to be launching it. Should be starting up in January, and we're really honored to be offering those services, really tapping into the assets and the experience and the skills that newcomers bring to Lincoln.
So that kind of concludes my remarks. We got a lot of other programs too, where we take a lot of volunteers to keep running. Right now we've adapted a lot of our programs to work with, being a little bit more remote, but just as much as effective, if not more. And so if you haven't already, fill out the volunteer application, or you can just contact me. Make sure that up to date and get you where you'd like to be and where you'd like to use your skills and talents the most. So with that, I'll hand it over to Megan.
Great, thank you so much, Jeremy. So as Jeremy has mentioned, one of our motifs at CSS is hope in the good life, and that's become a constant refrain, I think, for our mission. And that's easy to do. We're tapping into our slogan of Nebraska, But there's a lot to be said about the community that we live in when it comes to refugee resettlement. So Lincoln has historically been and continues to be such a welcoming place for refugees and immigrants. And this is the case for a number of reasons, many of which you are already familiar with from your firsthand experience of living here. We have an incredible quality of life. We have on a national level, a really low unemployment rate at about 2.9%. Of course, the exception being this year, which is as of May 2020 with COVID, it was at 5%, but compared to the nationwide numbers of 12, 13%, Lincoln stayed afloat, which has been really impressive. We have an excellent public school system and just a genuinely welcoming community. You know, I think Nebraskans are known for their strong work ethic and family values, and they really value knowing their neighbor. And I think it's these qualities of the Lincoln community that really resonate with the newcomers who come here. Those values that we share, I think it just allows for a fertile soil to welcome and really help others make this place their new home. So some fun facts. Lincoln, though it's part of a flyover state, it's made a name for itself as well in refugee resettlement on a national level. So we actually started settling refugees, at least at CSS, in 1948. I'll get into that in a little bit when I go through more of CSS's specific history with resettlement. But from 1948 to today, alongside a couple other resettlement agencies in Nebraska, Nebraska has been home to 30,000 immigrants and refugees, or Lincoln alone. We represent 150 countries. We also have the largest Yazidi community in the US. It's been one of the leading destinations for US refugee arrivals, I think precisely because of the reasons that I outlined earlier. In 2016, which was really the height of refugee resettlement since 9/11, this was the last year of Obama's administration, and we were welcoming up to, the national cap was set at 110,000. And Nebraska had resettled more refugees per capita than any other state, which I found really, really fascinating. I never learned about these things when I had been living in Lincoln until I got into this position. So to put this into context, obviously the refugee admissions has dropped significantly in recent years. So this current fiscal year of 2020, it's set at 18,000, and we've only settled about 45% of that due to COVID pandemic breaking out late winter. Some major countries that we represent here in Lincoln, they come from Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, Burma, otherwise known as Myanmar, Ukraine, Sudan, Guatemala, among many others. So CSS is one of 3 resettlement agencies in Nebraska. The other 2 are Lutheran Family Services, both here and in Omaha, as well as Refugee Empowerment Center, also based in Omaha. CSS began its resettlement program in 1948, is when we typically pinpoint the date, and our mission then was to serve families who had been displaced by World War II. The resettlement department expanded in the 1960s and 70s in response to the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Vietnam War. And now today Lincoln is home to a large Yazidi community, primarily from Iraq. These are many individuals who were already part of a highly persecuted minority in Iraq. And that really escalated in the last decade, I would say. So many of those who come from Iraq and sometimes Afghanistan, they've had experience working with the US Army in some capacity, often as an interpreter, sometimes as a mechanic. So they've been given priority today, even in light of certain travel suspensions. We still have a priority set on those individuals and their families who risk their lives to work with our military and to our even more endangered because of that work. Once the U.S. military withdraws, it provides a power vacuum, so to speak, that often is taken over by other competing authoritarian forces, sometimes fundamentalist groups, otherwise considerably speaking, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, among other militia groups. So we have a large priority on Iraqis, as well as those from Burma. So when it became an independent state in '48, a Karen minority was often highly persecuted in light of the nation state building enterprise that highly excluded and persecuted other ethnic groups that were not considered to be true Burmese. So we welcome a large number of individuals who are from the Karen ethnic group here. It's been a really welcoming site for them here in Lincoln. So CSS's role in resettlement. So as I mentioned, CSS is one of 2 resettlement agencies in Lincoln, one of 3 in Nebraska, but one of 2 in Lincoln. And our job primarily is to support the refugee community, most especially during their initial 3 to 6 months of resettlement. And the goal of a resettlement, the goal of within that resettlement period is to support a refugee family or an individual reach economic self-sufficiency. And we do this in a number of ways. So these are some of our core services here. So when it comes to housing, we are responsible for finding and furnishing their first apartment. We will finance the rent and utilities for their first 3 to 6 months, or until they've reached a point of self-sufficiency. Regarding health, we are the first to be handling their paperwork, enrollment into Social Security and other benefits such as Medicaid and SNAP. We offer transportation and interpretation services during their medical appointments, and we ensure immediate special medical attention for those who come with urgent pre-existing health conditions. As far as education, children are enrolled in LPS within the first 30 days of their arrival, and we assist adults within their first week and a half of being enrolled in ESL and other adult skills classes such as computer or literacy class, financial literacy, maybe a civics class, or any continuing educational program that can benefit their attainment of a proper job. We also get into community and cultural orientation, so offering necessary information on US laws, all of our peculiar cultural customs that we just take for granted, refugees' rights in the US, especially employee rights that were otherwise completely foreign, perhaps in their home countries. We want to make sure that they know their rights here in the US, especially to prevent any exploitation in the workplace. We will go over general housing and safety measures, Social Security, transportation, other community resources. We'll meet with the Lincoln Fire Department and the Lincoln Police Department as well. With employment, we've already touched a little bit on that. So we have our own employment department that helps. We enroll all of our clients into an employment program, and this will include doing an assessment, getting into their background and skills, any employability barriers and how to overcome them. We'll assist in finding and applying for jobs, offering interpretation services, accompanying them to their interviews and orientations, and just maintaining constant contact with them as they navigate the workplace here in the US. Then lastly, immigration services, which we just touched on, filing green card, doing citizen applications for a fraction of the price, and just offering the case management to accompany them with the naturalization process. But that brings us, there's a gap to be filled, however. So while the resettlement agency's traditional role is to help our clients attain economic self-sufficiency, we want to go beyond that and focus on social capital, those intangible forms of connection and community engagement, civic engagement. We want to help bridge that gap before they're applying for their citizenship 5 years later. So how can we maintain that further engagement and encounter? So what I have on the title here is New American Encounter, which is our new heading for what was otherwise known as the Adopt a Family program. We've been excited to launch this initiative, and we are excited to kind of rebrand it. What's behind the name here, so this is going to be, what I'm going to talk about is the volunteer opportunity that was otherwise known as Adopt a Family, that pairs Lincoln locals with refugee individuals or couples or families. And the aim is to facilitate connection and relationship, to allow for an exchange of conversations or ideas, and hopefully lifelong friendships. And so with that mission in mind, Adopt a Family didn't quite capture what we otherwise considered to be a very mutually beneficial relationship and exchange. And so we wanted to bring that forth, and we also wanted to highlight the dignity of newcomers. And so we wanted both to highlight that they're new Americans, they're new Nebraskans. We also wanted to highlight the notion of encounter. This is an encounter of people and of ideas and of friendships, and we have so much and more to benefit from that. So this is a picture of the first client that I met. He was actually one of our last clients before the COVID lockdown. So I joined CSS in May. This is Abdurrahman, who comes from Iraq. He's got a wild story, but he himself had been working with the US military. He was working with the US Navy specifically as a mechanic. But after the army withdrew, he was living in a small oil-rich city, Basra, and it was already captive to militia groups, but especially Al-Qaeda. So, in 2013, 2014, with the US Army withdrawing, Abdurrahman and his family were now on the wanted list for Al-Qaeda. And our friend Abdurrahman already has lost his brother, precisely because his own role that he played to support the US was enough to warrant a threat against his entire family. So Abdurrahman goes into hiding and fleeing. He's subject to an enormous refugee visa scam through, not related to the US, but long story short, if we have time to go into this later, I'd be happy to, but he has finally come to the US as of February. And I think my encounter with him has really shown me what we all know to be true, especially those who have worked with refugees or who've gotten to know them. But it's that the refugee community, they're a true testament to hope and gentle resilience and self-sacrifice. And I think it's for that reason, among so many others, that the Lincoln community and locals who are involved in wanting to become a volunteer mentor, quote unquote, actually have so much and more to gain in return. In many ways, I feel like Abdurrahman has been a mentor to me. So I'm really excited to introduce people like him, to introduce families to other Nebraskans, so that you yourselves can form relationships such as these. Speaking of which, the story behind this initiative, it goes back a couple decades actually, where there was a story, and I've probably included this in a brochure before, but this gentleman pictured here, his name is Fahim Rashidi, and he comes from Afghanistan. And he arrived about 20 years ago, and he was 16 years old. And he was kind of just taken up, sort of sponsored, I suppose, mentored by a parishioner from St. Peter's, Tim, who owns Sid Dillon. Maybe some of you know him, but Tim and his wife Kate took Fahim, 16-year-old boy, under their wing. You know, Fahim comes without any English, and Tim taught him English. Fahim didn't come with much of an education, and Tim accompanied him throughout his middle school, high school, community college, through his undergraduate at UNL, and finally to his residency at Boston University to get his degree in pharmaceuticals. And he's since come back to Lincoln, and he started his own pharmacy. And so it's stories like these, it's this encounter of Lincoln locals who just said, we want to get involved and we care about this person, and we want to give him the resources and the advice, you know, the simple advice sometimes that we take for granted, but that can be life-changing to someone who is coming with fresh eyes and a fresh experience. So we were really inspired by Fahim's story, and in addition to that, we had been in contact with, we've just noticed that there's been an ongoing interest, a deepening interest within the Lincoln community and among Catholic parishioners to just get more involved in ways like these, which we've been really touched by. And so this volunteer opportunity, and in many ways also, you know, it goes back to a group at St. Joseph's Parish, which is where I grew up at and know many of you from. But St. Joseph's has a volunteer group called FIAT, which stands for Faith in Action Team, and small group of volunteers that have an outreach mission-based focus. And we noticed that they wanted to get involved with refugees, and so we started having conversations about how we could do that. So thus was born New American Encounter. So how it works, my goal is to work with volunteers for those who are interested in volunteering and thus being connected with, being paired with another refugee or a couple or a family. My job is to work with those who are interested and kind of make connections that I think make sense for general family life circumstances or number of children and their age range. And so how it works is, well, first we would invite you to complete a CSS volunteer application online. And from there, that way we just have information kind of centralized on a platform. I have all your contact information. And then what happens from there is I would reach out to you and schedule just a quick conversation where I can get to know you. It's really important for me to keep this program very person-centered, that this is based on relationships that I've formed with volunteers or other parishioners or other locals, just as I would with the clients that we serve. So my goal is to get to know you a little bit more, and you know, your interest in this program, what your life looks like, if you have children, and if so, would they be interested, and if so, and if that's the case, we'll find a family that might be a good pairing for you. And then from there, I'll facilitate a gathering for that first meeting to make introductions. We've done this both in person and over Zoom. Both have worked very well. Actually, this Saturday, I will be joined on a patio of 2 families, both of 10 people. That's going to be a party, I think. But we had a volunteer come in, and she has 8 children, ages 2 to 17. And I thought immediately of another family from Iraq, about the same age range, and they also have 8 children. So I gotten to know both families independently, made connections, and this volunteer family, they're going to be offering dinner. So it's going to be somewhat of a potluck, social distance porch time. So this is all to say that the options are endless. Again, we want to make this personal and just help you make the connections. So the goal would be, you know, you meet maybe once, twice for the first 6 months of what would hopefully become a lifelong friendship. You can always use CSS as a resource. We know that there may be certain language or social barriers. And so for that, I want to show you some resources that you would have available to you. So already at CSS, we offer our own community and cultural orientation booklet that kind of goes through some of the key aspects of life in the US, especially for someone who's coming in completely new to our customs and laws and general culture. So you can absolutely make use of that. We also have space. So if you, in some cases, this partnership is a great way for families to practice their English. So if you want to make use of our classroom, we have a set of workbooks and computers, whiteboard. You're more than welcome to use our office as a space for you. We also have an online resource that's called CORE. It stands for Cultural Orientation Resource Exchange. And they have a whole host of resources available. One of them is a backgrounder. So if you're working with a client who's from Burma, you can get a better sense as to the situation of persecution that they face. So you come in with an informed sense of somewhat of a sense of where they've been. Obviously that only scratches the surface, but it gives you some context that I think is helpful. Or other general cultural or religious customs that might be useful as you navigate that new relationship and conversation. There's also what's called My LNK, which is just a really cool resource for anyone. And that's this little picture on the bottom left. And this is kind of a one-stop shop for for a whole host of organizations and especially community agencies and social services programs here in Lincoln. So you can search by topic. You could go by legal services or housing help or community and recreation centers, personal needs, community services, and it serves as a directory to you. So these are just some resources that I can work with you, kind of introduce you to as you navigate your relationship. Otherwise, I would just recommend that you stay in touch. Again, I'm Megan Maher and serve as the Refugee Resettlement Director since May. So if you have questions, I will do my best to answer them. In some cases, I'm learning a lot myself, but you have my email address. Many of you have already been in contact with me by email. Otherwise, that's my phone number, my office, my direct line. So I encourage you to reach out at any point. We remain a pretty personable agency, so we really care about building relationships and just being available to anyone who comes through our doors, regardless of the capacity in which they're walking through our doors. But with that, I just want to thank you all for opening up your hearts and hopefully your homes to this program. It means so much to me, and I'm really honored and humbled by the amount of the outpouring of interest and compassion, curiosity of people like you. So thank you so much.